Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session around Power Platform. Today, I want to take you through what exactly the Power Platform is, what products are there, how to license them, and what are things that you need to look out for. As per usual, if you haven't done so already and you're finding this through LinkedIn, please follow our channel, the License Q channel, where we post all our content through, and definitely also check out our YouTube page. We very much appreciate if you follow us there, and if you like this content. If you're watching it on YouTube, please like it as well. It will give you much more tailor-made content like this for you to enjoy. So the agenda for today, we're going to talk about Power Platform licensing. I'm going to discuss why we're doing this presentation. Powerapps, Powerautomate, and Power Virtual Agents. I will go through as a deep dive, and we will discuss what your options are for the Power Platform with licenses that you might already have, and then we follow and finalize with some conclusions. So why this presentation? Microsoft licensing is difficult, and Power Platform is not like most of the licensing that Microsoft offers. So also with this new flavor, different product team within Microsoft doing different things, and again, doing it in such a way that it might make it difficult to understand and not in line with some of the other licensing vehicles that they have. And we will obviously talk a lot more about that in the coming slides. So Microsoft is heavily investing on the Power Platform. So they find and see that Powerapps and Powerautomate are key differentiators for your organization to make a difference. But the way they're approaching this is by attaching it to most of the renewals, at least that we have been seeing. Powerapps is definitely one that always finds its way into the Microsoft proposals. And if you're unaware on what it is and how to license this, you should definitely follow this presentation further to understand how to license these products. It might definitely be that there's an interest of your organization into these products. They tie very well into the Microsoft portfolio, obviously. But you might also have competitor products like OutSystems or Mendix or something like that that do the same thing, might even be better, most likely cheaper, at least in the past. I don't know if it's still that case with the price decrease that happened, but who knows? Like I said, it's different from traditional cloud services like Microsoft 365. You obviously have the user-based licenses, but there are a lot of different other flavors. So you should understand what your options are and how it is aligned to your requirements. Powerapps and Powerautomate are the main focus here. Power Virtual Agents I've added as well. And Microsoft considers the Power Platform to also include Power BI. As we've covered this topic in earlier presentations already, we decided to leave it out of this one. Probably better as well, because we might run out of time in the end, and we definitely don't want to keep you longer than we will have to. Now, as a part of this presentation, we will also discuss your options through Microsoft 365 and Dynamics 365. Often Microsoft will push user-based licenses for Powerapps and Powerautomate, but it might already be the case that you are using the services according to the rules that are set up that you have within your Microsoft 365 or Dynamics 365 licenses. And if that's the case, you definitely don't need to add that to your contract. You can just keep using it as you are doing it now. This push, I think, we think, will only continue to increase. And as stated as well, all the negotiations this is being tied into. It's an important topic for Microsoft. They state that if you just renew your contract as is without any new or exciting products that Microsoft has, you might not get the similar level of discount. So it might be very key for you to investigate if some of these shiny gems that Microsoft has to offer, if that is something that you might even want or need. If so, you can leverage that in your negotiation. Definitely not upfront, but throughout the negotiation, you could add or show your interest in these products. Now, what exactly is Powerapps and Powerautomate? To set the scene very quickly. So for Powerapps, Microsoft states it increases agility across your organization by rapidly building low-code apps that modernize processes and solve tough challenges. So it's a low-code and no-code app development platform where you just click a few buttons and you could have a Canvas app already in creation that you can use, for instance, for hour tracking or room reservations or whatever type of thing you want to build to show to your people in your organization. The model is different, as I said before, so licensing can be difficult to understand. You license per user or per application, and licenses for additional capacity and portals should also be included. And the question that we often get is, how do you deal with external users, if any? So we will definitely answer that question in the coming slides as well. For Powerautomate, Microsoft states that it streamlines repetitive tasks and paperless processes so you can focus your attention where it's needed the most. So this is about robotic process automation or enabling automation of modern systems through APIs. So there's 350 first and third-party connectors, more on that later as well. And the robotic process automation enables automation of legacy applications where there aren't any connectors available, like with DPA. And RPA desktop flows can be categorized in attended RPA with human involvement and unattended, so that it triggers on its own. If you have that, for instance, set up on your device, you could trigger a flow that whenever an email comes in from a certain address, it performs a certain task like archive it or log it in an Excel file, create a new entry in a ticketing system, and so on. It all depends on the availability on how you can set it up and the connectors that are available through different applications that you might be able to use. Important to understand with Powerautomate and Powerapps is that it also makes use of Microsoft's CDS, Common Data Service, which Microsoft calls Dataverse. This is the same storage that Microsoft uses for Dynamics 365, sales, customer service, and field service. So just the CRM applications. And all Power Platform services subscription capacities leverage the same tenant and infrastructure and will accrue across one tenant, similar to how Microsoft does this for Dynamics 365. The storage is always pooled at the tenant level, and it's split out in the three different types of storage that they have, being Dataverse, file, and log storage. And the first Powerapps or Powerautomate or Power Virtual Agents or Dynamics 365 service provides the one-time default capacity entitlement for the tenant. So whichever product you buy first, that will decide what your base storage capacity will be. There are capacity add-ons available as well, which are shown on the right side. And the default that you will receive per tenant. So I've put a couple of tables here on the slide where you can see what type of storage you would get when you purchase a certain subscription, and the additional capacity that you're able to buy for the tenants and the virtual agents default capacity per tenant. So this is an overview. If you want to understand better on what you exactly are getting, do reach out to us as well. You are building it based on the type of license that you will purchase. So for instance, if you purchase a Powerapps default per user license, you would get the following storage capacity: 10 gigabyte base storage for database capacity, 20 gigabytes for file capacity, and 2 gigabytes for log capacity. Now, if you license on a different way, which we will talk about later, the limits are different. But then if you add more users, you would get more storage capacity. So if you have database capacity storage, You can accrue per user 250. I think there should be megabytes. Maybe I copied it wrong. I apologize. I will definitely check that out after this session, but you would get an additional storage based on the additional users that you add. Now for connectors, Power Platform uses external data sources to connect data to go into an app or be used by the flows that you're setting up in Powerautomate. And there's always a difference in categories for Microsoft. So there's standard connectors and premium connectors. Premium connectors require full subscription licenses for Powerautomate and Powerapps, while standard might be used with functionality included in M365, Dynamics 365, or even just your Windows license. Connectors can either be Microsoft products, meaning Excel, SQL, Dynamics 365, Azure, or third-party products that Microsoft has a relationship with, like Google Drive, Adobe, SAP, and Salesforce. I've put the links on the screen here. Obviously, you can easily find them by Googling this as well. But it is important to note that if you want to build an application, if you want to create a custom flow, and you want to use certain connectors, that you know what is in standard and what's in premium. Like I said, in premium, you usually need to buy the licenses for Powerautomate, Powerapps, and standard connectors might be included within M365 or Dynamics 365 already. And in that case, you can freely use those by just buying M365 or D365 licenses. Now, moving on to Powerapps. Powerapps licensing, a deep dive. Important to understand is differences between what Microsoft calls canvas and model-driven apps. So these differences, I've outlined this to the best of my abilities. The core difference is in a canvas app, you create a visual canvas. So it's light on data and very easy to create. Model-driven apps, on the other hand, have a data-driven approach. So you start with your data sets, and eventually you will create the application around the data set that you're using. A canvas apps is what it's called. It looks like an empty PowerPoint slide, and you can drag and drop the things that you might need for that application onto the screen. So it is a blank canvas, and you start just adding onto the canvas until you have the design of your application. For model-driven apps, this is more complex and sophisticated, as a business application will be created around it that is, at the basis, data-driven. Your design options are very free to use in the Canvas application design process. You have the freedom to design as you please, and it's more rigid in design because the data determines the outcome of your application as a model-driven app. Ease of use. So Canvas apps are very low code, maybe even no code in its truest form. You don't need to understand how to write code at all. Maybe a little, just to get an idea of what you need to do, but there's no requirement. There's no requirement for that. For model-driven apps, you need a general idea on how programming works, because, as I said, the complexity level here is a lot higher, and as such, you might need to run or write certain tiny sets of code for it. As for use cases, Canvas apps are not responsive, so often single use case like a ticketing system, checklists, or holiday requests. And the model-driven apps are ideal to expand business processes like customer service management, event management, or design of business processes. If I translate this in my own words, a Canvas app would probably align best to the standard connectors, and the model-driven apps you would generally require heavier premium connectors, or connect this to your Azure environment, your SQL database environment, etc., etc. So require paid licenses. Canvas apps might need to be paid for as well. Just depends. So if we look at the licensing model for Microsoft Power Apps, there are two licensing motions. You have the Power Apps per user plan, which is, like it says, a named user license to enable a user access to any number of applications and portals across any environment that you're going to be building within Power Apps. So if you generally are going to make many applications across multiple environments for all your users in your organization, then the per user plan would align best to your needs. And you assign these licenses through the Microsoft 365 Administrator Center. Power Apps per app plan licenses are a bit different. So this is a single license that enables a user to run one custom application or access one custom portal. So you build an application and you don't know exactly how many users will require access. You can do this by licensing per app plan. Licenses are allocated to users when an app in an environment is shared with a user. So you should see this as a bundle of licenses that you buy. You assign those licenses to an application, and anytime you give a user access, it will get one of the licenses to access that application from the bundle that you have. If you have another user, and so on and so forth, until all your licenses are gone. In that case, you need to obviously purchase more of these licenses to allow new users to access that application, or you need to take away access from people that you've granted access to before. Licenses are stackable, meaning if you need a user to access more than 2 apps in an environment, you can and should allocate more licenses to that application. So if you have 2 applications in one environment, there's 10 people just using one of the applications, but there's 5 people also using the other one. You would obviously need to purchase additional licenses. So you would need 10 plus 5. And then everybody could get access to the apps that they would need. These licenses are not assigned through the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, but rather through the Power Platform Admin Center, because you allocate those licenses to the application. So you need to make sure that when you have built your application, you have assigned plenty of Power Apps per app plan licenses to that application. This is best for businesses with limited apps and environments. When the number of environments and apps grows, you should switch to user-based licensing, probably because it makes more economic sense. Now, the entitlement summary for Power Apps per user license. So if you look at Power Apps per user, this is generally the use rights that you get from Microsoft. So you run custom apps and portals. With a per user plan, you can run unlimited applications and access unlimited portals, as long as your users that need access have a per user plan assigned to them. Connect to your data with standard connectors, premium connectors, and on-premise data gateways are all possible. Store and manage data, and it utilizes Dataverse, create and access custom tables, and Dynamics 365 restricted table access is read-only. You can execute flows within the app context, so it includes some Powerautomate functionality. And the Dataverse database capacity is 250 megabytes, and the Dataverse file capacity is 2 gigabytes. Per app licensing, some additional notes here. Nested applications like embedded Canvas app in a model-driven app, which is obviously possible, do not need an additional license. You can just use the one because it's still one application, even though you have created a Canvas application in a model-driven applications. Licenses are assigned to specific environments and to individual users. So like I said, you assign these licenses to the environment that they need to be in, and then you grant access to the user that needs access to that application. A single user might need multiple per app licenses to allow a user to benefit from using multiple apps or the same app in multiple environments. And the Powerapps pay per app, pay-as-you-go plan enables customers post-pay for authenticate active users who open a single pay-as-you-go enabled app or access a single portal in an environment one or more times in a month. So this is a specific additional license that you can purchase, and it will make sure that you get to access the pay-as-you-go enabled applications that you have, and you retroactively pay for these. So like you see here, run custom apps or portals. There's a restriction here to what you saw with the per user license. You can only access one application or one portal. You do have the same connector possibilities, and the store and manage data is similar. Where it changes again is the per license capacity, which is 50 megabytes for database and 400 megabytes for file capacity. Powerapps uses additional portals, and Microsoft states that portals are external-facing websites that allow users outside their organizations to sign in with a wide variety of identities, create and view data in Microsoft Dataverse and anonymously. Portals can be provisioned on demand, and provisioning a portals instance, draws 1 gigabyte from your available unused Dataverse database capacity. So these portals you can create for the reason listed here, but it does cost you a lot of your available capacity that you have in your environment. So what are the scenarios for portals? There are 3. There's internal authenticated use that Microsoft describes. You buy licenses per user or per app. So that's the basic licensing model that we already explained. Then if you have external users, but they require to be authenticated in your environment, you will license those with Powerapps Portals login capacity add-on. You buy the license for the required amount of monthly logins. So let's say you have 1,000 logins per month. You need to buy the bundles to total up to the 1,000 logins that you have per month. And note that multiple logins in a 24-hour period by one authenticated user are counted as one billable login. So if someone keeps logging in a 24-hour period, that just requires one capacity add-on entry. And then you have anonymous users. So if you open an application up to anyone and everyone that might want to access this, you acquire a license for Powerapps Portals page view capacity add-on, and it goes through 100K page views per month for $100 per month. This might be a public-facing website where you build an application for that you want to broadcast to the world or to the users that visit your page. Portals per login. For Powerapps Portals, instances that implement authenticated external user scenarios, appropriate login capacity based on anticipated usage volumes should be purchased. For example, a customer requiring 5,500 logins per month can purchase 55 units of the Powerapps Portals login capacity add-on tier 3. And this is enforced on a monthly basis, so unused logins do not carry over. So scope this well. And overages are allowed. So this is something that Microsoft describes in their licensing guide. I find it very confusing. So it reads like this is not committed or technically enforced, but rather an in or out of compliance scenario that you need to take care of yourself. Overages on these quantities are allowed in small quantities, but if it exceeds max capacity, you should add more portals licenses to remain compliant. So I'm still wondering what Microsoft means by this, but what I think is that it is possible to go over the quantity that you have bought, but they will require you to be in compliance with their rules and purchase the additional license that you might need for the amount of logins that you're going to have. So again, this is the table. There's 3 tiers. You have a min and a max purchase quantity that you have. If you require 5,000 logins, you should buy at least 50 of the tier 3 license with 100 logins per month. This is sort of a capacity model. So the tier 3 pricing is cheaper than the tier 1, but there's a minimum amount that you need to purchase in order to qualify for that tier. Powerapps portals per page view. These are for the anonymous access scenarios. You need appropriate capacity of page views based on anticipated usage. You purchase this through the Powerapps portal's page view capacity add-on SKU, which holds 100,000 page views per month. So if you require, for instance, 470k page views per month, you would need to buy 5 SKUs, which is 5 times 100,000. So a little bit over what you need, but you can't create this in a smaller fashion. Again, also here, enforced on a monthly basis, unused logins do not carry over. And again, the same thing was listed here. Overages are allowed in small quantities, but if exceeds max capacity, you should add more portal licenses to remain compliant. Powerautomate, the licensing deep dive. So we've talked about Powerapps. Now it's time for Powerautomate. And with Powerautomate, there's some additional flavors on how you want to license this. Obviously, here as well, Powerautomate has a per user plan. Named user licenses are to enable a user to access any number of flows across any environment. And these licenses are also assigned to the Microsoft 365 Admin Center and typically used for organizations that are using many applications across many environments. So if you run many flows within your organization that people need to use on a day-to-day basis, the per user plan is often the one that you want to go with. I don't come across these too much. Rather, what I see a lot more is the Powerautomate per flow plan, and it's a licensing option where a single license enables an unlimited number of users to use a single flow across an organization. It has a minimum quantity requirement of 5 of these licenses per tenant. Also here the licenses are stackable, meaning if you need a user to access more than one top-level flow in any environment, you can and you should allocate more licenses to that flow. And also here, licenses are not assigned on the admin center, but through the Power Platform admin center. This is best for businesses that want to have all users access the created flows within the organization. So you basically buy minimum of 5 of these licenses for your tenant. You can create 5 flows. Anyone gets to access that flow. Now there's 2 more licensing models. Powerautomate per user with attended robotic process automation. This is a base license and is the same as the Powerautomate per user license, but then with attended RPA added. This includes the ability to create desktop flows for automation. So it's basically also assigned to your device in a certain way. So it is assigned. So these desktop flows must run on the device of the licensed user. You still assign it per user, but that user can only use that license on its own devices. If there's multiple flows, they must be run sequentially. And these are for scenarios that are triggered by explicit user action. So you can set up these flows with robotic process automation. So it takes over some automative tasks, but they're still triggered by you themselves. Whereas the following license, the Powerautomated Unattended RPA add-on, is what it says, an add-on license to Powerautomate per flow license or Powerautomate per user with attended RPA license. And you can deploy local, remote, or via any other virtualized environment. So you need a Powerautomate per user plan. And what this does is, unattended robotic process automation. So these are triggered whenever a certain action happens. So what it says here as well, you license these per bot, between quotes, because that's how Microsoft states it as well. And you need a license per unattended scenario. You can assign these through the Power Platform Admin Center as well. So again, to summarize, this license is for scenarios where you have something trigger in the background without human interaction. So again, the example that I usually give is an email comes in from a certain address, you recognize the address, it needs to trigger a ticketing system or add an entry to an Excel file. This license can do that for you without you having to worry. It can even archive the email for you so that you don't even have it in your inbox anymore. This is just the way that it works. Now, if you look at the Powerautomate license plans, I have put them all in one overview. Powerautomate per user plan, Powerautomate per user with attended RPA, and the Powerautomate per flow plan. What you see, like I said, the minimal initial purchase requirement. There's a purchase requirement for the per flow license, which is 5 units per tenant. And that's the only one that is not licensed per user. The other two are licensed on a per user basis. You can create cloud flows through it, automated, instant, and scheduled flows. All 3 license types will allow this, and business process flows. Powerautomate per user plan does not allow you to create attended flows and unattended desktop flows only through an add-on on one of the per user plan licenses. Now, there's a lot of other differences like share and collaborate. The per user plans allow you to apply flows included in the license. Standard connectors and premium and custom connectors are all available through all the licensing plans. And where you see some differences, again, is in the license capacity. So Dataverse database capacity is a lot smaller for the Powerautomate per flow plan license, similar with the file capacity as well. Powerapps licenses include Powerautomate functionality for automating workflows in Powerapps applications. We've talked about this in the Powerapps segment already. Powerautomate use is limited to the context of the Powerapps application, and what your options are on the screen here. You can execute flows, cloud flows, or business process flows. You can connect to standard premium or on-premise data gateway, and you have the option to store and manage your data through Dataverse. There are Powerautomate use rights available with select Windows licenses as well. This is to run the attended RPA flows. Like I said, that is usually tied to the machine of the person that have the Powerautomate user assigned to it. But in the case of Powerapps, there's also some Powerautomate use rights available within Windows. You receive this through Windows 10 Pro, Windows Enterprise E3, and Windows Enterprise E5. On to Power Virtual Agents, licensing deep dive. Power Virtual Agents, Microsoft states this is a product that empowers teams to easily create powerful bots using a guided no-code graphical interface without the need for data scientists or developers. You can integrate bots with hundreds of applications and services using pre-built connectors. You can allow the ability to create custom workflows with Powerautomate. It allows users to monitor and continuously improve bot performance using AI and data-driven insights. And the licensing model is the following. It's licensed per tenant. Power Virtual Agents will be charged according to the unit of build sessions. So a user license called Power Virtual Agents User Subscription License is required for each user authoring bots within the environment. And that's a $0 SKU. So it's just to technically enforce that those users are the ones that can author the bots. So what's a build session? This is an interaction between the user and the bot and represents 1 unit of consumption. The build session begins when a user topic is triggered and ends when a condition is met, and capacity is enforced monthly and can be carried over to the next month. So you probably want to scope this to the best of your ability. Again, also here, overages are tolerated in small quantities, but if it exceeds max capacity, you should add more portals licenses to remain compliant. Here's the licensing structure laid out in a table. Power Virtual Agents licensed per tenant, and the offered details are 2K chat sessions per tenant per month. You can create flows within the context of Power Virtual Agents bots. You have standard, premium, and custom connectors, and Dataverse use rights 10 gigabyte of database capacity, 20 gigabyte of file capacity, and 2 gigabyte of log capacity. And you have the capacity add-ons, also licensed per tenant, a capacity add-on for 1,000 chat sessions per tenant per month. It increases the number of chatbot sessions and daily Power Platform requests per tenant. And the SKU name should read chat session for virtual agents. And finally, the per user license, again, a $0 SKU. A per user license is required for each user authoring bots, and it's recommended to acquire the tenant license with the capacity add-on if needed, and the user licenses as part of a single transaction to simplify onboarding to Power Virtual Agents. Now, when you have, like most companies, purchased Microsoft 365, or even like a lot less companies purchased Dynamics 365, you already can use the Power Platform. But what I sense with the discussions that we're having with our clients, that it's often not very clear when you should switch from your M365 and D365 capabilities to the paid subscription licenses, and why you should do so. So I have a few slides, and those will be the last slides before the conclusion, where I want to outline what it is that you are able to do with the licenses that are included in M365 and D365. And I've split these out in Powerautomate and Powerapps. So if you look at summary of Powerapps for Microsoft 365, this is what you get to do. Run custom apps and portals. You can run custom apps, but only Canvas apps, and in an unlimited amount. So you can create Canvas apps with Microsoft 365. You can create an unlimited amount of Canvas apps within Microsoft 365. Please note, though, there's always some limitations, as in size-wise or the data file that you're using. So it might be that it is quickly becomes too small for what you might need. So it reads nicely, doesn't really mean a lot. I see this is not very well shown here, but you are able to use standard connectors, but not premium and custom connectors. You can utilize Dataverse for Teams, use for apps in Teams only. Select M365, O365 licenses. Powerautomate use rights. See Powerautomate with Office 365 section that is listed in the product terms. And you have a daily API request limit of 2,000 requests. Powerautomate for Microsoft 365. You can execute workflows. Automated, instant, and scheduled flows are available. Business process flows are not available. And also here, just standard connectors and no premium and custom connectors, or no on-premise data gateway. You can utilize Dataverse for Teams here as well, with select Microsoft or 365 or Office 365 licenses. And also here, the daily API request limit is 2,000. Now, if you look towards Dynamics 365, there is a lot more possible, but basically it's within the scope of Dynamics 365, what we're talking about. So you can run custom apps, run standalone apps. These can be Canvas or model driven within the same environment as it's licensed for the Dynamics 365 applications. So Dynamics 365 enterprise applications. So if you use Pro, that is not a possibility. Standard connectors are available, premium connectors and custom connectors are available, and on-premises data gateway is available. Again, solely within the environment as licensed Dynamics 365 applications. You can utilize Dataverse, create and access custom tables for the Pro applications, 15 per app, but unlimited for enterprise applications. And there's restricted tables use rights for create, read, update, and delete. You can execute flows, automated insert and scheduled flows within the app context. And if you have an AI builder capacity add-on, if you have a requirement for that, it is at an additional cost. Powerautomate, quite similar within app context only, but it can be any type of flow. So anything that has to do with Dynamics 365 that you want to run a flow for, you are able to do so. Also here, all the connectors are available. Dataverse use rights are available. Create and access custom tables, 15 for Pro and unlimited for Enterprise. And again, the AI builder capacity add-on is at an additional cost. That was it for what your options are with Dynamics 365 and Microsoft 365. Hope that made sense to you. If not, let me know where you are struggling. It is always worth to try out if the limits are to your liking or not, and if you fall outside of the limits, which you quite easily can do, then it might make sense to move to the user-based licenses or the other type of licenses that are available for Powerautomate and Powerapps. Now, what I want you to take away from this session, and I see I've been going through it quite quickly, but hopefully it made a lot of sense. And if there's a lot of questions, I'll be sure to come back to these. But what I would like you to take away from this, what I think I've shown you is that Microsoft licensing for Power Platform is quite different. The per user licenses obviously aren't, but there's additional flavors, capacity, portals, virtual agents that you might want to build your solutions around. In that case, it's important to know the requirements that you have. And the main takeaway for this is check if there is interest in this part of Microsoft portfolio, as Microsoft is highly pushing this with all their renewals. So being aware of your own organization's preferences in this regard is key. Are there competitive products that I'm using? Am I willing to part with them to make sure that I might get a better deal from Microsoft on my all-up enterprise agreement renewal or whatever you're contracting in? If I'm not using a competitor, are we ready to start adopting one of these platforms? Do we want to use Microsoft for this? Why do we want to use Microsoft for this? And then understanding the licensing model and what you actually need from these products is most important. So understanding of the licensing model is key. Microsoft wants this product to go through your company like an oil stain. So they want it to run rampant within your environment. They most likely want you to buy user-based licenses for all your users, and then hope to get you hooked on this platform as well. They already tested it out. I think they're still doing this in the US, where they do something with self-servicing, where whenever you run out of licenses, you immediately get some new ones from Microsoft. But in Europe, they quickly canceled this because that's not the way they allow things to be licensed here. Usually, they will target the business side of your organization to have these discussions around Powerautomate and Power Platform, because they will cite massive cost savings for your organization. And it's important to be aware if these discussions are ongoing, and that you, as a procurement agent or maybe someone in the IT organization knows what to expect towards the near future. Understand what your options are through the license you already have. Like I said in the earlier slides, Microsoft 365 and Dynamics 365 already have some basic functionality included for Powerapps and Powerautomate. Dynamics 365 a little bit more so than Microsoft 365. So the options within Microsoft 365 are quite limited. In Dynamics 365, they're reasonable. So if you're using Dynamics 365, definitely see if what you want to do, what you can do, is already possible for you. Microsoft will push, obviously, for you to purchase the paid licenses, but this might not always be the case or necessary for you. And finally, always the shameless plug. We live and we breathe this. So allow us, or companies like us, because I don't just want to plug ourselves, but many independent firms like us exist around the world. And we and they can help you with your optimal licensing configuration. We can easily identify the requirements that you might have and how you can best go about to license this. And with that, last little promo where we always end with, again, if you like this session, please follow us on LinkedIn, like and subscribe to our YouTube page. And if you like some of the special content that we have on our YouTube page, please give us a thumbs up, because that will help us get our word out more. With that, I want to thank you very much for tuning in again, or if you are looking at this on demand, thank you for following us. Do leave your questions and comments, and we will be sure to get back to you on these. And I want to wish you all a very good day, and I talk again to you very soon. Bye.